You need to step away from the hustle bro culture that says, just be more disciplined, just get more done. You have the same 24 hours in the day as Beyonce. Beyonce has an army of people helping her, and we probably do not. Be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned, but also be realistic in what you can actually accomplish in the time, capacity, and energy that you have. Welcome to What Was I Supposed to Be Doing? Time management, prioritization, and focus for when the whole business runs from your brain. I'm Lauren Glenn. I've been in the online business space for over a decade, and I've helped everyone from small business owners to Fortune 500 companies stop reacting to their business and start running it with purpose. These days, I work with service-based entrepreneurs who are booked out, overwhelmed, and tired of always feeling behind. Together, we create time management strategies that match your brain, your energy, and the business you're actually running, not the one hustle bros say you should have. Around here, you'll get honest takes, practical strategies, and maybe a little swearing, so you can finally follow through on the stuff that matters and stop stressing over everything else. Let's get into it. Why is it so easy to start something that you are so excited about? You think, this is it, this is the thing that's going to change everything for me. And then you get partway through, maybe even halfway through, and you can't get it finished. You cannot just seem to get it over the finish line. You plan to finish the thing, the workshop, the launch, the project, but somehow it keeps getting pushed or paused, or it just quietly disappears from your list of priorities. Most people assume that this is a discipline problem, that you just can't make yourself focus, you can't make yourself sit down and actually do the work. But I don't think that's the only thing that's going on here. And this episode is about what's really going on and how to actually follow through on the ideas that make the biggest difference in your business. And I want to reiterate, it's not a discipline problem. This is where we default to talking about because we don't really understand the actual problem. And we've also been made to feel a little guilty by the hustle bros by saying that we just don't have enough discipline. We just need to focus. We just need to sit down and make it happen. But it's not that you aren't disciplined. You're sitting down and making this happen. You have a business, it's running, you're making money from it. So it's not about lack of discipline. The reality is your calendar is probably actually overloaded. You're trying to fit too many things into the time that you have. You're trying to add in this high importance, high leverage idea on top of what you already have going on, as opposed to looking at your capacity, looking at what you can realistically take on or drop in order to add this new thing. It's not about having discipline or not having discipline. It's about having room. And it's not just about having room in your calendar. It's also about having the mental room to take it over. When your brain is already full before you even start working, then it's really hard to even look at something new. You're trying to write your client notes, you're catching up on the half-done things that you haven't finished, you have these new content ideas, you have an idea for a new offer that you want to do, and it's all sort of churning and spinning in your brain, and it's taking up a lot of your mental energy and your focus. And so when you sit down to quote-unquote focus, your brain is already thinking about these million other things that you have going on, and it makes it really hard to focus on something new. Even if you have a project management tool or a VA or other people working for you, and I would say especially if you have other people working for you, it can still be really hard to turn everything else off and actually focus on the thing in front of you, the exciting creative thing that you want to focus on. And if you're really resonating with this, if you're thinking, I'm too busy to be creative, I just have to do the things in front of me. I have a whole episode all about specifically that. Episode 36, Too Busy to Be Creative, Here's How to Fix It. If you're always thinking about your big ideas but never quite making progress on them, then that episode talks about mental overload and how it blocks your execution. So if you want to learn more about that, go listen to that episode. The other problem is you don't have clear priorities, you just have a to-do list. You have a list with everything that you have to get done on it, and everything is important, but none of it is really clear around what's important, what's valuable, what's the priority for you to be focusing on right now. It just all has to get done. And it all has to get done by you because you're the business owner and you're the brains behind the operation. So it all relies on you. All of these tasks feel super urgent, but urgency is not the same as importance. And if you're not filtering your tasks, that high impact stuff that doesn't feel urgent always gets pushed to later because it never gets to that level of, I have to do this right now. That's how your ideas die in your backlog while you're quote unquote busy all day and still feel like you got nothing done. And if you're really struggling to prioritize the work that you want to do, you have all of these things on your to-do list, but don't really know sort of where each thing fits or where your time should be going, that's exactly where my hell yes hard pass task sorter comes in. This is a free Notion template where you can put everything that you have on your plate into a Notion doc and figure out exactly what your priorities are or should be. I give you strategies for figuring out what your priorities are, where your time should be spent, and how to rank the things that are on your list so that you can figure out what's valuable and not just what's on fire or urgent that's right in front of you. You can get that at the link in the description or at laurenglenn.com/hellyes. So how do we fix this? How do we make room for those big things that are valuable, that are important, but maybe don't feel as urgent as everything else that's on our list? How do we actually make these big things happen? So the first thing you need to do is check your capacity. I have a client, Denise, who desperately wanted to start a membership because she knew that she could help more people. She knew that there were people that couldn't afford her one-on-one services, and also she was maxed out to capacity. But she wanted to be able to help more people, so she wanted to start a membership. But she was already overextending herself. She was full up on clients. She was still agreeing to do other things outside of her client work. She was doing all these presentations, and she was doing all of these studies. She was a nutritionist. She was doing all these studies, and they were really taking up all of her capacity, all of her time, and she wanted to add in this other thing in addition to all of the things she was already doing, and didn't really consider her capacity when she was accepting these new projects, these new ideas. And so I worked with her to figure out, okay, where can we scale back? Where can we take that step back and figure out what can go to your VA, what can go to the other dietitians that work with you, what can you just drop that doesn't actually have to get done so you can make room for this big new idea that you want to implement for your clients that you know is going to help them, you know is going to be a game changer, not to use an AI term, but a game changer for your clients, for the people that you want to help. So we worked together for her to figure out how she actually tracks and checks her capacity. And now she actually does a capacity check before she commits to anything. So instead of asking, should I do this thing? Is it good? Is it valuable? Is it important? It's more about asking, can I do this thing right now? And if this thing is important enough and valuable enough that I have to do it right now or I want to do it right now, what is going to fall off your list in order to make room? Because your list is probably already very full. So you can't add things to an already full list. I'm sorry, you just can't. As a productivity coach, one of the best advice that I can give you is to take things off your to-do list because you're much more likely to get a few things done well than everything done poorly. So check your capacity, make sure you actually have availability before you commit to these new things, these new ideas, these new requests. That includes your time, but also your energy and your attention, not just your calendar. So don't just look at your calendar and say, well, I have an hour over here and I have an hour over here, so I can definitely take on this giant new project. Also consider, are these other things that you're working on taking up most of your mental attention and your energy? Or do you have, the energy and attention to add this new thing to your list, to your plan? The next thing you can do is pick a single anchor task. So for any big idea, figure out what's the one thing that I can do that will make everything else easier? Or what's the smallest version of this that I can do to still get the result? How can I simplify this idea to still get the result that I want? And in software development, we call this the minimum viable product. What's the minimum work that we can do to still get us, 80% of the way to the result that we're looking for? And then that gives you your proof of concept to see, okay, this idea is working. So now I can dedicate more effort, more energy, and I can add more bells and whistles to it and really build it out. But for now, what's the smallest version of this idea that I can do to figure out if it's worth my time and attention? Another thing you can try is using a container instead of a deadline. So instead of saying, I'll launch this by the 15th of next month and it'll be great, Try saying, I'll spend 2 hours on this each week so that I can make progress on it. And if you find as you're making progress that you want to work on it more, then you also still have to ask yourself, what am I going to drop in order to make more capacity for this thing? I'm discovering that it is valuable, it is worth my time and attention. So what is going to drop in order for me to spend more time on this thing? This also helps because if you don't know how long it's going to take, and let's be honest, as humans, we are terrible at estimating how long things will take, even though we try really hard. This creates time blocks instead of pressuring you to get something done by a certain date that may or may not be realistic. And then finally, set up recovery checkpoints. Assume that you're going to follow behind at some point and decide how you're going to reset before you ever even get to that point. This stops you from scrapping the whole thing the minute you miss a day or the minute it gets really hard or you figure out that it needs actually way more work than you thought it was going to need. So by setting up those checkpoints sort of ahead of time, you're giving yourself the permission to know that it's not going to go perfectly and you're going to have to reevaluate. I want you to really consider what would change for you in your business if you finished the things that you actually care about without burning yourself out along the way, without other things falling apart. It's not about adding pressure to yourself or making your business harder than it needs to be. It's about removing the friction to actually getting the things done that you want to get done. And I know that I make it sound easy, right? Oh, just drop things off your list. Just do less, right? And in reality, that's not an easy thing to do. And so that's exactly what I help my clients figure out in my Bottleneck to Balance roadmap, where we sit down together and figure out what are things that can drop off your list. Where is your time actually going? What should your schedule look like going forward in order for you to be the most productive business owner that you can be? And that may end up being doing less. That may end up being working fewer hours. Whatever you need to be successful, that's what we sit down and figure out together. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to laurenglenn.com/roadmap and get more information and book your session. So you should stop trying to force follow through in a system that can't support it. You need to step away from the hustle bro culture that says, just be more disciplined, just get more done. You have the same 24 hours in the day as Beyonce. No, we don't. Beyonce has an army of people helping her, and we probably do not. So be gentle with yourself when these things happen. Be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned, but also be realistic in what you can actually accomplish in the time and capacity and energy that you have. And if you want help figuring all that out, go ahead and book your roadmap. Next week, we're going to be talking about why, even when you have a solid plan, things still fall apart. Why your plans always fall apart, and actually what to do instead of that. Because it's great to have clear priorities, but if your calendar can't actually make it work for you, then nothing actually sticks. So if you aren't already, please subscribe so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a comment or like and subscribe, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.